Welcome back. Today we are talking with Margaret Millett. Our first segment, we talked about political instability and geopolitical risks. Segment two, we talked about talent shortages and skills gaps. And in segment three here, we're going to talk about mental health in the resilience profession. Margaret, why should we worry about mental health in the resilience profession?
Well, first, I want to just say I am not a mental health professional person. So I just want to say that these are just some observations that I've had, and also some of it of just talking to people over the course of the last year. So, Alex, I look at it as, resiliency professionals often operate in high stressful environments, responding to crises and managing continuous risk. You then look at the what I'm going to say the stress from these demands, coupled with the unpredictability of the role, can lead to burnout. But excuse me. And I think that we as professionals sometimes sell ourselves short on taking care of ourselves, that we need to stop and hit the pause button sometimes to help support the mental well-being of our own selves, our teams. It's critical to be able to maintain this effectiveness within the profession. And I think that we also need to make sure that we're practicing what we're asking the organizations to do for the members of our organizations. And for example, when we ask HR to lend a helping hand on promoting mental health resources, or we talk about encouraging balanced workloads and creating support networks amongst ourselves and our practitioners, I think that sometimes that's where we fall short, that we don't practice what we preach.
True. I think,
And
go ahead.
and I was going to say, this year alone, I think that I have talked to so many people who are either gaining weight, losing weight, not sleeping, their hair is falling out, they're extremely stressed, they're working a boatload of hours, or they've also got the issue of, their personal lives have changed, whether it be through whatever situation, or they've got new management, which is making them stressed, and or they've got a manager that's micromanaging them.
Yeah, I was just going to mention the personal side of it too, because our positions, oh, here comes Mr. Miss, Doomsday here,
Yeah.
we're always looking, trying to find the risks or, talk about the bad things. We don't
Yeah.
walk around, talking about bunnies and rainbows type thing. That doesn't happen. And
Hmm.
then we have our personal life where we have different challenges, maybe with partners or children or parents that need to
Yeah.
take care of, and things like that. And sometimes the overwhelming amount of stressful situations, I don't want to say
Right.
negative situations, but
Yeah.
stressful situations is too much to bear
Yeah.
because it's on both sides, the personal and the professional side.
Right. And so that's where I'd like to tell every new resilience professional, new or old rather, who's been in the industry is, we have the new year approaching within 6 weeks. So I'm going to say this. I'm terrible at New Year's resolutions. I might say whatever on January 1st. And do I do it by January 8th? Hell no. Excuse me. Whoops. I'm probably not supposed to say that word on the show.
Eh,
Um,
my show, I
but
don't care.
I think the thing that we need to do is really think about what we need to do in order to be feeling good about ourselves a year from today. And there are things that we can control, and there are things that we cannot control. And so, one of the things that I'm going to recommend that everybody does is put together a list of what is it that you want for yourself to be happy with yourself in your job and in your personal life. And, that may mean that you're reprioritizing certain things in the new calendar year. But what I want to say is take some time to think about what's right for you, your team, your personal self, and your family in order to be happy. Because no job is worth compromising your health. I mean, we
Right.
do not make enough money, and so I think that's where you do need to stop and say, what is it I can and cannot do, and then also figure out what you may need to stay to management of, like, I look back at all that we did in 2024 and, like, wow, we did a lot, but I don't think that's sustainable going forward. And therefore, we've got to maybe say that, you do need to sometimes go to senior management saying, again, I'm only capable of doing X amount of work. Because the other thing, even though you look at what your workload's potentially going to be, knowing what you're trying to support for your, what I'm going to say, portfolio, you know something's going to change, Alex. You know that you're going to have a new line of business. You're going to have a divestiture. You're going to have a change in technology. You're going to have a change in leadership. You're going to have reorgs. You're going to have somebody maybe lead the team. You're going to have, yeah, all this stuff. Therefore, it's not going to be smooth sailing. And therefore, you're going to need time to go pivot to meet these new changes.
You mentioned something there about control, not worrying about the things you can't control. And I think that's part of the problem of people in our industry.
Yeah.
We do, and our role in a way is to try and control that things don't happen. But things are
Yeah.
going to happen. That you can't
Yes.
control. You can only control one piece of it, and that's getting prepared. The response, who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows what that, or the trigger, I should say, sorry. The trigger,
Yeah.
you don't know what that's going to be. But we
No.
try to control that, and then we jump straight into response mode and then stress ourselves out about something that hasn't even happened. But we can control the preparation part of it and the awareness and the training, so that when something does happen, there isn't that huge amount of stress. I'm
Well,
simplifying a little bit, but
yeah, and I think that we do need to evaluate what these things are for us because, we talked also about, talent. And if you want to continue to maintain talent, I think you got to figure out how to, make it more sustainable for a professional business continuity professional want to stay in the profession. And, I've started to say this to some people. It's like, why should the business continuity team be necessarily be the crisis manager? And by that, I mean, like, yeah, well, you might be the SMEs on providing the framework for a crisis management framework. But if you have a global security center that's operating 24/7, 365, why can't they learn how to run a crisis management call? Because if something happens at 2 a.m., they're already up. And then also, if you've got something that's happening halfway around the world, you've got somebody that's there that's operating in that time zone. So,
hmm,
how can we actually help leverage the resources that the organization has to share the wealth, Alex, on some of these things? And I'm just saying, I've worked at large global companies that have had the 24/7, 365 operations center.
yeah,
So I think, like, try and leverage that. Or, again, if you don't have that capability for those security centers, well, then figure out within your network, if you are a global organization, how you can help them be a little bit more sufficient, self-sufficient in those regions that you operate in by tapping into your business network.
yeah, I agree with that. I've worked for organizations that have 24/7 service desks. So they're monitoring everything in operations
Yep.
centers, they're monitoring everything. When there are small incidents, they already have processes in place. They don't have to call
Yep.
business continuity people. They've already got things in place, who to call, what they need to do. And if it escalates, they know who to escalate to. Well,
Yeah.
then yeah, why not make that part of the crisis management team? And I've got one client where I'm actually doing that, and they're finally starting to see, oh yeah, why are we recreating the wheel? We already have most of the wheel here.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I think the only thing then, if you're going to do that, you really need to understand how the follow the sun model is going to work, because you don't want to have it that I'm in APAC and I can only see the information in APAC. That if you're going to pass it off to EMEA and then to the United States, you've got to get it onto a mode of communication that's going to be seen by multiples, and not, this is my chain of communication. This is the EMEA one. This is the Americas. And also just make sure that a lot of organizations still struggle in 2024 with standardizing processes. And I think that that is still mind-boggling to me, of how can we not want to try and have efficiencies, do things the same way, report things the same way. I mean, I worked at one organization where they literally had one part of the world, Alex, report how many times somebody spilled coffee in the office. Well, I'm assuming that if you're in the office, there's a cup of coffee that's spilled like daily, or almost. And I don't think that's a crisis, but I get it if I spilled coffee on you and you needed medical treatment, that you maybe wanted to report that. But, it was one of those where it took, I think, 6 months to finally get them to realize, like, we don't need to report beverage spills as a crisis.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird one.
I know,
Um,
but again, it becomes culturally, because it was like, wow, we responded to X amount of incidents.
yeah, yeah, true. So what can we do for resilience professionals who maybe are feeling overwhelmed and uh, you know, stressed, having mental health challenges, because we are always seen as Miss and Mr. Doomsday. Oh, here comes, Debbie Downer, or, something like that, because all we're going to talk about is, are you ready for a disaster? And hey, have you seen
So,
the latest headlines, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah, I am going to say you got to get better at managing your own time. And I don't mean that the way it sounded, Alex, but for example, if you work 9 to 5, and I'm just saying this, maybe try not to schedule a meeting to start until 9:30 so that you can take a look at what's happening in your calendar. We're still in the mindset of scheduling, say, 50-minute, hour-long meetings. We'll schedule 15 minutes so this way that you can wrap that meeting up, or even do 45-minute meetings. This way you have time to, walk away from your desk and stretch your legs, go get a beverage. And, I hear so many people like, oh my gosh, it's 11 o'clock. I haven't gone to the bathroom. And I'm like, well, if you're going back to back from Zoom meetings,
Mhm.
you do need to stop every now and then to go to the facilities. And also figure out what's right for you mental health wise, meaning, not everybody's going to have a dog to go take out and walk. So figure out what you need to do, whether it's, taking a walk in the morning, going to the gym. Make sure you have block 30 minutes for yourself to have lunch, so that you can feel like, I'm stepping away from work. And I also think that the fact that we're tied into so many things, meaning, you've got your phone, you've got an iPad, you've got your laptop, know when to walk away from work at the end of the day. Because, I get it that you might maybe need to monitor something tonight because something's happening in Asia, but you don't need to be glued to your device every morning, evening, and weekend. You need to know when to turn things off, so that you can walk away. And, I say this to people because people are always like, oh, Margaret, you left the ABC company. I wonder how the program is. And I'm like, it's in my past. If I leave this company tomorrow, they're still going to get by. They're going to have somebody new take over continuity, or they're going to do something different, but I can't worry about it.
Yeah.
And if I leave tomorrow, meaning if I win the lottery, bye bye corporate America. Like I'm gonna go, start traveling and going doing fun things. So like you have to remember the organization and the program will survive without you.
Yeah. And even though it's a serious topic, I guess you don't take it so seriously that it starts to affect you.
Well, and I'm going to say this, we've got a lot going on, personally, professionally, globally. We talked about that, Alex. It's okay to say I need to call the employee assistance line and go talk to somebody about what's happening. And, I think that also depending on if you're personally impacted by one of the events that have happened at your organization and you've just worked so many hours, take the time to do what you need to do. And also, it's the end of the year. Have you gone and milked all your medical appointments that you should have done throughout the course of the year? Did you get your eyes examined? Did you go to the dentist? Did you get your annual physical? Like that's the kind of stuff I hear people say, like, oh my God, I haven't done that yet. And
Yeah.
trying to get a doctor's appointment between now and December 31st. Well, good luck. But I'm gonna say, like, you gotta still take care of yourself. Or I've also heard from many continuity professionals, I need to have a surgery and I don't know when to go book it because my calendar's so blocked. Well, I bet the executive leadership teams, if they need a surgery, they're not hesitating as to when to go book a surgery. So why are we? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We have 1 minute left, or 1.5 minutes left. Any
Yeah.
final thoughts on mental health in the resilience profession?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say this. Be good to yourself. Because at the end of the day, no one's gonna care more about you than you. Your boss is gonna care, but at the end of the day, you've got to get out and be your advocate. You've got to do what's right for you because only you can make that determination. And so start, like I said, put together what's going to be your 2025 resilience checklist for you to have a sane 2025 and be happy professionally, mentally, and personally.
And I'm going to add a comment that yourself, Rena, and Candice said at the BCI World, and that's champion yourself.
Yes.
You know? And I think
Yeah,
we need to do more of that.
we
Just,
do.
yeah,
We do.
yeah. If we champion ourselves and we look like we're in control, others will then start to, in my opinion, will start to notice that and then come to you for information because you look like and you will come across as the rock.
Yeah,
And you will make yourself the hub of the wheel rather than just another spoke.
correct.
So on that note, we've come to the end of the show. Margaret, thank you so much. It's always great chatting with you.
Alex, it's been a pleasure. I wish you all the best and for lining up guests for the upcoming year.
Oh, yes. And I've got quite a few. I have a stack of names off to the side here.
That's great. Thank you again for having me on.
Great to have you here. Thanks again, Margaret, and everyone watching and listening. Stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.